Deep Threat Sports Network fans, welcome back. Hey, it's time for another episode of Foul 'em Hard with Garrett and myself. What's crazy, man, is this is going to be our last episode in the month of February. Time is flying. Garrett and I have been highly anticipating what's coming in this March Madness tournament. So we're going to kind of turn the page this episode a little bit, not really focus so much on the game-to-game basis. And we're going to turn the page and really focus our attention to what is to come in this tournament, who's on the bubble, who looks to be a lock. We're going to kind of discuss the projected 1 through 4 seeds right now, see if we agree with them. We are going to stick with reading out the top 25 to a little injury bug conversation and wrap it up at the end with obviously one of our favorites, bangers of the week. So Garrett, hey man, real quick, tell everybody out there how your Indiana Purdue game was. You got to go and witness your first win at Indiana as an Indiana fan. You've had a losing streak from hell. It was time to pop the bubble, and man, you sure did it this time.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. Anytime you can go to Bloomington and watch the Hoosiers at Assembly Hall, it's amazing. For those of you who are really die-hard college basketball fans, Assembly Hall has to be a bucket list place for you to go. Not only is it louder than hell, but just the layout of that arena is so unlike any other place you're going to see. It's definitely a place, if you have any interest of seeing a college basketball game, Assembly Hall should be on the list. And yes, finally solo win. I was 0-7 before that game. We now move to 1-7.
Hey man, well deserved. Happy you got to witness that, and shout out to your wife for taking care of you and hooking you up with those tickets. That was awesome. That was I need to talk my wife into getting me some more tickets to some more sporting events too, and have her tag along with me. But all right, man, let's dive into this thing real quick and let's get focused up here. Real quick, Garrett, go ahead and tell us what's kind of popping out there with the injury bug. What's new going on out there? Anything big on your end you're seeing?
Yeah, there's a handful of names I'm going to bring up today. A lot of them, obviously, the names I bring up on this list are usually some of your bigger names on some bigger teams. So we're going to start off with Curtis Jones for Iowa State. He's going to be a game time decision today against Oklahoma State with an illness. You never really know what's going to happen when guys have illnesses. You really don't know if they're going to play, if they're going to play limited time. I would expect in this situation, he will not see the floor in this game tonight, is what I would expect. So Curtis Jones, Iowa State, game time decision. Next guy we're going to talk about is Jaden Nunn for Baylor. He's also got an illness. There is a nasty flu bug going around college basketball. He actually missed the game on Saturday against Colorado. He's going to be a game time decision today for their game against Cincinnati. Alex Condon for Florida finds himself on this list yet again. He is still questionable with that ankle injury. He was supposed to try to return to play against Georgia today. He has now been downgraded to questionable. We'll see if he ends up making an appearance in that game. Lamont Butler for Kentucky, his second appearance on this list. His shoulder still being a problem. He is a game time decision. He's missed 3 of the last games, but good news for Kentucky fans, he's finally upgraded to questionable instead of out, so we'll see if he can make a comeback here in the near future. I would expect him personally to miss one more game. I don't think there's a real need for Kentucky to rush him back. They're not going to be fighting for a 1 spot in the SEC. Their tournament hopes are pretty much locked in place. So I wouldn't expect them to rush Lamont Butler or Jackson Robinson back, who's also been dinged up for quite some time. Lastly, Coleman Hawkins for Kansas State has a knee injury going on. That's a really big deal for a team fighting like hell to make the tournament. He did not play Sunday against Arizona State. From what I see, from what I understand, his return date is questionable. They really do not know when he'll be back in action.
Yeah, Coleman Hawkins, Garrett, is probably the biggest loss on this list, only for the sole fact of they're really pushing hard to try to make something happen here late. You know, Iowa State, Florida, Kentucky are obviously all in the tournament. Baylor, on the other hand, though, they are a team that's kind of riding around and hovering around, being in and out. So Jaden Nunn, he's a very important player for Baylor. It's a big game for them coming up tonight. And yeah, we are recording on Tuesday, February 25th. So Baylor does have a big basketball game against Cincinnati tonight that I would expect them to have to go in and win to really push them over the hump here. Going to kind of turn our direction here to the latest and greatest top 25 that came out yesterday. First, let's talk real quick, Garrett, about some teams that are on the outside looking in. You know, when I see this list, I first think of Creighton, Ole Miss, Kansas, and New Mexico. New Mexico, what a hell of a season they're having right now. I think they are kind of a deserving team at this point. But, man, this top 25 is loaded. It's hard to find a spot for them to get in there. Ole Miss and Creighton, great basketball teams, haven't done enough as of late to push themselves in this list as well. But I want to talk about Kansas basketball real quick. I watched a game late last night. They played Colorado. 9 o'clock tip, if I remember correctly, and maybe even 10. I don't remember. It was really late, and I stayed up for the whole entire game. I was blowing your phone up last night. You were sleeping. Garrett, I watched Hunter Dickinson play, and I offensively, very talented basketball player. We'll take nothing away from him on the offensive side of the ball. But defensively, he might be one of the laziest players in college basketball I've watched this whole entire season. There's no effort, there's no motivation, there's no nothing when it comes to the defensive side of the basketball. It was really ugly to watch him on that end of the court.
Yeah, and I want to give my 2 cents on the Hunter Dickinson situation going on in Kansas because we have talked about Hunter Dickinson and his inability to take that next step when Kansas needs him to. Offensively, just like you mentioned, no issues with him offensively. He's going to get you a very similar stat line game after game 18 points, 9, 10 rebounds, a block. I mean, that's just what he does. That's offensively what you can expect. The problem with a big man being lazy on defense in college sports is there's no 3-second violation in college hoops. Your big man is the most important defensive position on the floor. His job is very simple. Typically, he's not following a big to the 3-point line. His job is to protect the paint. How are you, as a 7'1" Hunter Dickinson, allowing so many layups and dunks at the rim? His job is to protect the rim, and he's 7'1". It's all effort. He shows no effort whatsoever. And it's truthfully, Collin, half the reason Kansas is a very mediocre basketball team is because they lack effort at very important positions.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. When I watched that whole basketball game, this was just not the typical Bill Self type college basketball team I'm used to watching. They're pretty lazy all around, to be honest with you. Hell, there's offensive possessions, Garrett, where nobody moves. It was really bad. I watched Dickinson allow, Bengot Dak for Colorado to go in and dunk on 3 straight possessions and have nobody anywhere near. I mean, just absolute. It was. I don't want to say layup because it wasn't a layup. He was dunking, but like it was a gimme, man. There was nobody around. Really, really easy looks for them. And it allowed Colorado to be in the game late. Kansas was on the ropes. They were on the ropes late in this basketball game. And if they lost this one, man, it was time to have a different conversation about Kansas basketball. But moving on to our top 25 here, I'm going to read it off. Once again, I say this every episode. It does get pretty stale, just me hearing my voice rattle off 25 teams. So just bear with us a little bit here. 25, we have BYU. 24, Mississippi State. 23, St. Mary's. 22, Arizona. 21, Marquette. 20, Purdue. 19, Louisville. 18, Memphis. 17, Kentucky. 16, Maryland. 15, Michigan. 14, Mizzou. 13, Clemson. 12, Texas A&M. 11, Wisconsin. Moving on to our top 10, we have Texas Tech. Iowa State 9. Michigan State 8. Number 7, St. John's. 6, Alabama. And our top 5, rounding it out, we have number 5, Tennessee. Number 4, Houston. Number 3, Florida. Number 2, Duke. Number 1, Auburn. Garrett, anything you want to throw in and throw us a bone here? Anything you have to add to this top 25? What do you see? What's catching your eye here?
Yeah, one of the big things that catches my eye early, and it's something we kind of predicted, I would say a week or two ago, Arizona's slide from 13 to 22 seemed like it happened in the blink of an eye. And I mentioned this a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. When the season ends, you will not see Arizona in the top 25. They're not good enough to withstand that ranking. They're hanging on by the skin of their teeth at 22 now. I still think that downfall is going to happen. Another big team I want to talk about. And Collin, this is a team we don't talk about hardly at all in this show because they're not part of a Power 5 conference. It's the Memphis Tigers. I want to talk about how good this team is and the potential to make a March run that I think they have. They are very, very guard heavy, surrounded with a big in Dane Danger, who is arguably one of the better bigs in college basketball when it comes to putting the ball in the bottom of the hoop. I think Penny Hardaway has his team built perfectly for a March run with PJ Haggerty, Tyrese Hunter. I just think their whole roster fits the mold that I like to see to make those March runs. And we don't talk about them a whole lot, but I'm going to give them the praise that they deserve in this episode.
Yeah, man, Penny's got that team humming. They're in the right direction. Hey, I know Memphis very well, man. They beat Mizzou early on in the season in a back and forth affair. That was a hell of a basketball game. But yeah, man, Tyrese Hunter, PJ Haggerty, as good as it gets. And we talk about it every episode, I feel like now, especially now that we're trending towards this March run. What happens in March? You need guards. Guard play wins you big time basketball games down the stretch. And if you can sprinkle in a big like Dane Danger, hey, you have all the ingredients to make some things work in March. And you were exactly right, Garrett. They can do it. I love watching Memphis too when they play, because anytime they're playing somebody, I know maybe just an old dad joke here, but I love like if they're playing UAB or somebody per se, and I get to say, hey man, UAB's in danger. I love watching him take basketball games over. So yeah, good shout out for Memphis. You're right. We don't spend a whole lot of time on them, and they are very well deserving. This is a hell of a top 25, man. This is a tournament where I truly don't know what's going to happen. I think it's all about matchups and kind of how it plays out. Obviously, Auburn and Duke are very dominant, but after that, it's wide open. The parity is there. And that really leads us right into what we're going to call a little bit of madness talk here. What we're going to do in this segment for everybody out there listening is we're going to go through seeds 1 through 4 and what the projections are showing us right now. And Garrett and I are going to talk and see if we agree with the projections right now or if we shuffle some teams in and out, because when it comes down to it, when there's this much parity, the seeding does truly matter at this point. So projected 4 seeds as it sits right now: Arizona, Michigan, St. John's, and Purdue. Projected 3 seeds as it sits right now: Kentucky, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Wisconsin. Projected 2 seeds: Michigan State, Tennessee, Iowa State, Houston. The 1 seeds rounding it out, we have Auburn, Duke, Bama, and Florida. Garrett, my 2 cents real quick. I think the 1 seeds, I could agree with all 4 of them. I do have a lot of conversational pieces, I feel like, for 2 through 4. How are you feeling?
I think the 1 seeds are okay. I think all 4 of those teams are deserving of a 1 spot. Although I think if I had to be a guy who predicts where these 1 seeds fall, you won't see, in my opinion, 3 SEC teams on the 1 line. I think one of those SEC teams drops out, and I think Houston takes the spot of whichever one drops out. I think Houston is much more deserving of a 1 seed than maybe an SEC team who finishes their conference tournament run in the second round, per se. And that could definitely happen with a Florida or an Alabama. If they get knocked out of the SEC tournament early, you're going to see Houston take that spot, my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. If I could sprinkle a line out there like on DraftKings or something, I would definitely take Houston to make a 1 seed, and without a doubt agree with you that Bama or Florida 1 falls out. Auburn and Duke locked in at 1 seeds, in my opinion, and I think you probably agree with that. And I'm confident enough to say with what you're saying that I think Houston is a lock at the 1 seed. I do think that happens. When I just first look at it, I think, yeah, those 4 teams right there are 1 seeds for sure. But the way this whole thing's going to shake out, Houston will probably plug in there. Now, some concerns I have with the 2 seeds, and that maybe that's because there's so much parity, but I think like an Iowa State, a Tennessee, and a Michigan State, all 3 at the 2 seeds are very vulnerable, very beatable teams that go cold. And when they go cold, my Lord, they cannot score points. These are all 3 teams that could also come out and give you 85 points and hold a team to 47 points. I mean, that's just what these teams do. They can drag you in the mud, or they can show up and not score themselves. All 3 of those 2 seeds on that line, besides Houston, very vulnerable to me. Do you kind of agree with that? Is there anybody in that 3 seed mark that you could see come up and be better than the 2 seeds? Because when I look at the 3 seed line as a whole, I think the 3 seed line as a whole right now is better than the 2 seed line outside of Houston.
I'm fully on board with that. I think of the 2 seeds now, and Colin, I mean this seriously when I say this: Michigan State, Tennessee, Iowa State, if those 3 teams end up as 2 seeds, I truthfully think you might see 2 of them lose first round. And it's for the sole fact that I don't trust them offensively enough to keep up with a mid-major who, what happens when they come out and they make 8 or 9 threes? How are you going to keep up? Now, I will say most of those 3 teams, they pride themselves on hardcore defense. But you still see these defensive teams get lit up by some of these mid-majors in tournament play simply from the 3 ball. I think, my personal opinion, I think St. John's has just as good a shot as any team to find themselves on a 2 line. I haven't seen a situation or an argument for them to be anywhere else than a two spot in this tournament. I don't really understand why they are on a 4 line right now with the resume they've put together. I think it's a team that's been disrespected the entire season.
Hey, man, I couldn't agree more. I think everybody that's followed along with us knows that I'm going to push that, especially as just as much as anybody out there. I think St. John's is very deserving, and Michigan State and Iowa State scare me more than Tennessee. But we have seen moments where Tennessee really, really struggles in basketball games. But I would feel more comfortable with Texas Tech at that 2 line. I feel more comfortable with A&M at that 2 line. Honestly, Wisconsin as well. Those are all teams that I almost feel like maybe are a little more consistent, I guess. I can't say Kentucky so much because Kentucky is another team that plugs right in there with Michigan State, Tennessee, Iowa State, where it's hot or cold. And when it's cold, it's really cold. And when it's hot, it's really hot. And we look down at this 4 seed line, we see Arizona. You and I both are, I can't say big advocates against Arizona, but we don't really show a whole lot of support to them because we kind of see through the bullshit. And I think there's a lot of it there. Like, I don't think they're that good of a basketball team. And I don't know. A 4 seed to me is way, way too high, way overrated. I think I could name off like 5 or 6 teams right now, in my opinion, that are way more deserving of a 4 seed than Arizona. And to your point, we're going to have Arizona in the same kind of category as St. John's. That to me isn't right now. I'm not feeling this Arizona 4 seed thing.
No, you know, a huge problem. I shouldn't say it's a problem. One thing that always seems to really scuffle up this March Madness tournament seeding. Obviously, you're going to have conference winners who were unexpected. A lot like, I'm not going to use NC State as an example last year because they wouldn't have even made the tournament. But I think back to a couple years ago when Kentucky was sitting around that 3-4 seed line. They end up going on to win the SEC tournament, jumps them all the way up to the number 1-2 seed. It almost seems like the committee takes away the first 30 games of a season and bases it on a 4-game run in which they looked extraordinarily dominant, and they jumped them ahead of teams maybe a little bit more deserving. You were going to see that. There's going to be teams that aren't even on this 16-team list that we just read off that will make it to a 3 seed that you just have no idea. What if Mizzou goes out and they are the runner-up in the SEC tournament? You're going to see them on a 3 line.
Yeah, and I was going to kind of bring them up a little bit, not to be, have the homer pick come out, but what bums me out about Mizzou a little bit here is if they go in and beat Arkansas this last weekend and take care of business there, coming off that Alabama win, we are having a conversation with Mizzou probably on the 4 or 3 seed line right now. And they go out, and it's typical Mizzou thing to do, go out, lose that basketball game. I mean, I've lived with that for 28 years of my life, watching this time and time again, them do the same things. So saw that coming from a mile away. But if they really do kind of wrap this thing up and they have a good SEC showing in the tournament, I do think they can make their way up to a 3 or 4 line, and I think they are very, very well deserving. If you're going to tell me, an A&M's deserving, hell, if you're going to tell me an Arizona's deserving, Mizzou's deserving. I think another team that could maybe find their way and do some big things in their conference tournament is a team like Louisville. I think they could get their name up in this list. I think Clemson could get their name up in this list. There's a lot of teams that are way more deserving out there than this Arizona basketball team.
You look at a team like Marquette. What if Marquette goes on a really deep East run? Marquette, if Marquette finishes this season going through their conference tournament with 1 loss and they win the conference tournament, honestly, you'll probably see them at a 2 seed. You truthfully probably will.
Yeah.
And that is just how much things can change just with the conference tournament. If you have one of those teams that makes a deep run in their conference tournament, their seeding can change by 3 or 4 spots.
Oh, yeah, and we're what, Garrett? 3 weeks away from these big conference tournaments coming, right? 3 weeks away probably. So that's kind of why we wanted to start doing this kind of now, right? Because we can see how we can talk about it early, get ahead of the game, see how things shake out, play out as they go along, and it's going to get real dicey down the stretch, and that is what we're here for. Maybe we'll do a reflection once the bracket comes out and be like, okay, here's where we were, here's where we ended up. Now let's get this thing going. And just talking about the tournament, man, it gets the juices flowing. I can't wait for us to do a bracket episode. It's going to be so badass. But moving on, now we went from the top to the food chain. We're going to go to the bottom here, teams that are fighting to survive. We're going to call this kind of popping the bubble. And I'm going to read some teams off here, Garrett, in order from most likely to make it to least likely being in the March Madness tournament right now. as it sits. And then if you want to pick teams out as I go along this, Garrett, we can talk about some quad wins, who we think's more deserving than others. If there's somebody down at the bottom that you kind of want to move to the top, and we'll really shake it up once I get these teams read off here. Leading off with most likely to get in, West Virginia, Texas, San Diego State, Ohio State. Those are kind of your first four most likely as it sits right now today to get in the tournament. Then we're going to move on to the next four. We have Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Wake Forest. Those are right there pushing to get in as well. And then we kind of move on to the last 8 teams that really look like it's not going so hot for them right now, and then maybe on the outside looking in, maybe an NIT bid. UNC, Indiana, SMU, Xavier, Boise State, Georgia, George Mason, Villanova. Garrett, is there anybody in that bottom 8 that you would put in that top 8? And anybody in that top 8 you'd put in the bottom 8?
Man, I don't know, Colin. I'm going to try really hard not to be homerish here. I think they still have work to do. And obviously, if you know anything about me, I'm referring to Indiana. They have work to do. I think if the season ended today, I think they're probably one of the first 4 teams out. From everything that I see, everything that I read, they're not in yet. But what I will say, over the last 2 weeks, I don't know if there's a team in college basketball that has 2 better wins than the Indiana Hoosiers. They pick up a win on the road against Michigan State, who at the time was number 7 in the country. Obviously, on Sunday, they knocked down a really good Purdue team at home. 2 wins that kind of propelled Indiana to this spot. One thing that they have that is completely different than every team below them and a handful of teams above them. They have 4 quad 1 wins. That's more than most of the teams on the bubble watch. Typically, you're on the bubble because you can't get these quad 1 wins. Obviously, Indiana has a lot of opportunities being in the Big Ten, but I think 4 quad 1 wins should be enough to propel you into the tournament over a team with, maybe say 1 quad 1 win. You're looking at a team like, maybe a UNC who has 1 quad 1 win on the season. I think a team with 4 should be in over a team with 1.
Well, I think UNC is kind of on this. They're really teetering, right? And I think they're kind of in that spot because of the name UNC. I think if you give this resume and you give that to a team like I don't know, I can't think off the top of my head. That's not a blue blood. They're going to be like, okay, this team, they're just not going to make it. And to your point, we kind of go down our notes here and all the research that you and I have done, and there's what 6, 7 teams with 4 to 5 quad 1 wins, and Indiana is one of those teams. So I could definitely see the case for it. One team that I want to address here a little bit that really has to make something happen here, probably in their conference tournament, is SMU. They're 20-7, hell of a record in the college basketball season this year with this much parity. But what's also incredible about that, Garrett, is they're 0-5 in quad 1 basketball games. That cannot happen, and you expect to find your way into a tournament. That's not how this is going to work. And then the UNC, 1-10 in quad 1 wins. Xavier, 1-9 in quad 1 games. I mean, those teams are playing their asses off and just not winning the games they need to win.
Yeah, and I will say to kind of counter argue that the whole quad system, to me, it's great when you're trying to look at a resume. To me, it can be an unfair advantage for teams. For example, the SEC, Mizzou, these teams in the SEC are facing a quad 1 opponent 2-3 times a week, home and away. SMU is in a much more difficult spot because their quad 1 opponents that they're facing the remainder of the season is probably a team like Duke, good luck, a red-hot Louisville, good luck, or Clemson, who is playing just as good a basketball as anyone in the country. There's your quad 1 opportunities in the ACC. That's what SMU is dealing with, as opposed to Mizzou, Arkansas getting quad 1 opportunities against, say you play Georgia on the road. That's a quad 1 opportunity, which is a pretty weak quad 1 team, but it's still quad 1.
So with all that kind of being said, because I do agree with you. I mean, the ACC is way down. SMU is in the ACC, and they just don't have the opportunity this year to really capitalize to build this resume up. Like, I mean, they have had 5 games. I feel like if you could have squeaked out 1 or 2 of those, that would have been huge. But I mean, so do you think at 20-7, do you think that gets them in? I mean, they're 5-2 in quad 2, if that means anything, out there for the resume people. How do you feel about that overall?
I don't think you should be eligible for an at-large bid in this tournament as a team in a major conference without a quad one win. All you're proving is you
Yeah.
can beat bad teams. Great,
Yeah.
you should beat bad teams. What do you do against teams that are decent? You have to find a way to win one of them. One of them. I mean,
Yeah.
just prove to us
Yeah.
you can beat somebody. I don't like looking at the quad wins as much as everybody else, but it is a very important statistic that these guys look at when choosing teams to make the March Madness tournament. And if you don't have any of those valuable or important wins, how do you get in the field over someone who, even though they might be 4-11, at least they've won four of them?
Yeah, and you know, I'm kind of with you on that. It's what we have to use as data points because it's really all that they look at. And I'm the same way in college football world. I'm an eye test guy. I like if I see a team go out there and they're playing a top notch opponent, whether that's quad one or however we want to classify that. I'm an eye test guy, man. If I see you, if you play good, if you play clean basketball, and like you said, you just run into a buzzsaw like Duke, and good luck. Not many teams are going to beat them. If that's what you have to use as quad one statistics. Not good for you, like you said, spot on. So if you go play a Duke and you battle and you compete and you contend, hey, that's enough for me to be like, okay, yeah, this team could probably find their way in and probably battle against some of these lesser tournament teams. I don't know, to your point though, if SMU can do that right now. They've shown signs to be a good basketball team, but they beat the bad teams. And that's all they're really doing. Another team like Arkansas, I kind of want to talk about a little bit. They did just beat Mizzou, but Arkansas, for me, man, it's a roster that you look at and you're just like, if they can just put it together, if they can just play as a team, if Cal can just get his head out of his ass and just coach a little bit of basketball here, do the X's and O's, they are a team that if they find their way in and they get hot, they could make a run. I'm not saying a run to the championship. I'm not even really saying a run to the Final Four, but they could go in and win a couple basketball games. I can promise you that. And they were one of my preseason teams to make a Final Four push. Not likely, but I also wouldn't be overly surprised if somehow that happened.
I wouldn't either. And I will say the thing that is going to help Arkansas's case, again, it's kind of unfair. It really is, but it's just the way that the committee always seems to work. Recency bias is a big deal when it comes to this
Yes.
tournament. If you have a fantastic start to your season, let's say your non-conference schedule, you were knocking down everyone, but you finish your conference play losing 10 of 11, and you finish the season with a record of, I don't know, let's say 19-12, but you lost 10 of your last 11, you're probably not making it. If you can win 10 of your last 11, you have a horrible non-conference season. You struggle at the beginning of your conference play, but you rally off some wins late in the season. The committee remembers that, and they will put you in over a team who is struggling. It happens every single year. And I think
So,
Arkansas has the best chance of that happening over any of these teams.
I completely agree. So I'm going to give you three teams real quick, and then we're going to kind of turn the page unless you have anything else you want to add. But I'm going to give you three teams right now that I think are really competing the most amongst each other, obviously because they are in the same conference. But I think when it shakes down to it, I don't think they're going to give all love to the SEC. So I'm looking at Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I'm going to read you some Texas stats, some Arkansas stats, some Oklahoma stats, and I need you to kind of pick one here. So Texas has an overall record of 16-11, conference record of 5-9, a 4-8 quad one winning record, and a quad two record of 3-3. Oklahoma, 17-10 with a conference record of 4-10. They're 5-8 in quad one and 2-1 in quad two. Arkansas, we are 16-11 with a conference record of 5-9, 4-9 in quad one, and 1-2 in quad two. If you just had to break this down real quick and it comes down to drawing one of these teams, which one would you give the nod to?
I think Arkansas. And I think it's a lot because of what you just said. I think they passed the eye test more than these other teams. They have the quad one wins, maybe not as many as Texas and Oklahoma, but they have the quad one wins. The eye test to me, better. They have a head coach who
The
is going
coach,
to
yep.
provide bias with this committee. I think if I had to choose a team that even personally I think will make the most noise in March, not only do I think we'll get in, but as a chance to win a championship. Obviously, I don't think they're going to, but who has the best chance of that? I think it's Arkansas, and I don't think it's close, really. I think if you watch those three teams play on three separate TVs, you would say, "Wow,
Yeah.
Arkansas looks a lot better than these other teams.
I I would rank this Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma. For all the reasons that you said on Arkansas. I could see Texas a little bit. Texas is a basketball team that has had a lot of teams that are late in the ball game. They compete really well. They are pretty well coached. They got some big name players. Oklahoma's kind of a one horse pony. Like they're like a one horse race, man. Like they have one guy I feel like they really revolve around. And if it's not going there, the rest of the team is really not going either. I'm not impressed with Oklahoma, to be honest with you. I'm surprised that as it sits right now, that Oklahoma is above Arkansas per their projections. That is kind of surprising to me. And I'm also really surprised that Texas is so much further ahead than, Arkansas and Oklahoma per se. I'm also not surprised to see UNC sitting on the outside. I know that was kind of random, but I'm going to throw that out there every time I can that UNC is on the outside because everybody thinks UNC is just going to get in because of the name.
Yeah, I think the reason you're seeing teams like Texas and Oklahoma ahead of Arkansas, you got to remember, Colin, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, remember how bad this team looked. I mean, just really how bad it got. It was really ugly, and they've had a great 2, 3 week turnaround. It's been awesome. It's been refreshing to watch Arkansas basketball play good. It's been refreshing to watch Cal get some wins because I like Coach Cal. I really do. Refreshing to watch him win. They just struggled too long. I'm afraid it's too late if they don't put together something really special over the last 2 weeks and then into the conference tournament. I still think it was too late.
I'm in complete agreement with you. It's Arkansas for me was on quit watch. Like I was like, they may just mail this thing in. They really might, but they have enough star power to overcome the adversity, overcome the rough start, and the Boogie Fland injury going out for the rest of the season. They were able to turn the page and really rally this team and try to find scoring elsewhere and run a different style offense without him. It seems like, and it's kind of working. Like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we brought this up. Hey, is Arkansas going to be better without him? You made a great point. Well, it's hard to be better without your best player, but it's kind of looking like maybe they found a new style of offense where they're going to distribute the ball to everybody. So it's working, and I'm with you. Just the name Cal Perry is going to give the nod over some of these teams when it comes down to it. And I don't really have anything else on this bubble watch here, unless you have another team that you want to talk about or some comparisons you want to make here.
I do. I want to talk about one team because I know one of our
Okay.
listeners is a really, really big Villanova fan. And he always talks about I shouldn't say he's a big Villanova fan. When football's over and it's time to turn on college basketball, he turns to Villanova. So he's the biggest Villanova fan from the months of like January until March. And he always asks, he goes, "What do you think about Villanova making this tournament?" And I tell him the same thing. It seems like I've said the same thing the last 3 years. They better win out, and they better win at least 2 games in their conference tournament. For anybody who wants to keep an eye on Villanova and the absolute dumpster fire that they have going on over there, they need to win, and they need to win a lot because they had some horrendous, horrendous losses early in the season that you can't afford. Good news for Villanova, they have a lot of opportunities in the Big East because the Big East is a pretty deep conference, but they need to essentially win out and then win a couple more games in the tournament to, I think, even have a chance.
I think if they don't win out, unless they go win the Big East tournament, there's no way they get in because they play Seton Hall, Butler, Georgetown. You drop any of those, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. And what sucks for them too, I think, is they're a team that if they found their way in with Eric Dixon and Luka Poplar, like you have two really good guards right there that I think could go make things happen for your team. And I think they're a good coach basketball team. But to your point, some really, really ugly losses early on in the season that you couldn't afford to have happen to you, like a loss to a team like Columbia. I mean, those are things that can't happen, right? So I think you have to win out, and I think you have to probably go win 2 games in the conference tournament. Otherwise, there's no way. I mean, it's really. I put this at like a 10% chance.
Yeah, Colin, I'm telling you, this Villanova team, they might have some of the best players in the country to be sitting at this bad of a record. Eric
Yeah,
Dixon is as good as anyone. Jordan Longino is just as good as any guard in the country, as well as Poplar. The fact that they're sitting at this horrendous record and virtually no chance to make the tournament, I don't understand it. And this seems like it's like the third year in a row Kyle Neptune has been in this spot with Villanova. If he misses the tournament this year as the head coach for Villanova, I think there's serious discussions about him being fired as that head coach for Villanova. I think it's time for a new chapter because he's not making it work.
I could see it. Honestly, I really could. I felt like it would go better, and hey, there's still time, I guess. But it's really dark right now, and they're gonna have some major things go their way. All right, Garrett. Well, let's turn on to our last chapter here of this episode. We have bangers of the week, and like we just talked about, some of these teams on the bubble, some of these teams in the tournament. I mean, these are big games coming down the stretch for seeding purposes. And firing off not right now, but right now today, we have Tuesday the 25th. We have number 24 Mississippi State at number 6 Alabama. Garrett, I'm taking Alabama all the way in this one. How do you feel?
It's a game Alabama needs a lot more. This is a struggling basketball team that is really hitting a downward spiral at the wrong time of the year. Mississippi State is a team that can beat anybody. They have the guard play to beat anyone in the country. They almost knocked off Alabama once this year. They're going to give Alabama everything they can handle. If Alabama can't find a way to get a few stops, it's going to get hairy. But I still think this game means too much. Alabama's going to win it.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Another game that we don't actually have down as necessarily a banger of the week, but I think it will be a banger, is tonight as well. It's Baylor at Cincinnati, and this is a game that both teams got to get. Do you think Baylor can go get this one? Because I think they need it more than Cincinnati at this point.
They have to. They absolutely have to. If I remember right, they just lost this weekend to Colorado. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think yeah.
I thought it was this weekend. They lost. I mean, it's again a team that maybe not on the bubble watch, but there's still work to do for Baylor to make the tournament. They can't lose games. I mean, they can't afford to lose these kind of games anymore. If they drop this one to Cincinnati, they're added to the bubble watch. I mean,
we're talking about them next week on the bubble conversation.
It's a game they have to win, and to be honest with you, Colin, they're 5 times better. So win the game.
Yeah, I mean, Jizzle James is all Cincinnati has for the most part, I feel like, when they need a bucket, and Baylor can go a lot of directions to get one. Wednesday the 26th, we have number 8 Michigan State at number 16 Maryland. Who you got in that one?
I'm still not sold on Maryland. I think they are one of the more overhyped teams in the country. I don't like the too big style that they run. I'll take the Spartans.
I don't want to take either team in this matchup. If I could, I don't even know what the stat is out there. The line is obviously just not out yet. I'm going to take the under in that basketball game probably because I'm not sold on either basketball team. But I guess I would lean Michigan State. I'll ride with you on that one. The next game we have on Wednesday the 26th for banger is Ole Miss at number 1 Auburn. That's clearly Auburn all day long, right? I mean, unless Ole Miss comes in and plays their best basketball game of the season.
Is Auburn by a mile, but I will say, as an Indiana fan, I will be tuning into a lot of Ole Miss basketball games because Chris Beard is target number 1 to be the next Indiana head coach. So I will be tuned in to a lot of Ole Miss games.
Hey, that would be a really good move for Indiana. Just going to throw that out there. And kind of once we get past the March tournament things and we slow down a little bit, we can really turn our focus on some coaching moves and stuff like that, and some transfer portal type of things. Yeah, Garrett, I would be all in on Chris Beard if I was Indiana. Moving on to Saturday, March 1st. Leading it off, we have number 1 Auburn at number 17 Kentucky. Kentucky needs this one, right?
They need it. They need it really bad. I still think Auburn's too much to handle for a Kentucky team that struggles on the defensive side of the ball. If they can hold Auburn under 80 points, they will win the game. If Auburn scores more than 80, they win the game. That's my prediction.
Yeah, hey, I'm with that. I really am. Moving on to the next one, number 6 Alabama at number 5 Tennessee. Don't miss this one. Don't miss this basketball game.
No, and to me, the winner of this game is whoever can dictate the pace. If Tennessee is able to play this game at the pace they want to play it, they're going to win. If this turns to a track meet, it's going to be the Tide. Whoever controls pace wins the game.
Nothing but the Tide, baby. I think Alabama is going to go in here and beat Tennessee in this basketball game. I truly think, even though we saw the seeding earlier, projected seeding, I should say, I think Alabama needs this one more at this moment. I think Alabama can go in there and Nate Oates can rally this basketball team and go beat this Tennessee basketball team. And Tennessee's defense, to your point, they have to control the pace because if they drag them in the mud, yes, you're right. Alabama cannot play a low-scoring, slow-paced basketball game and win it. Moving on to the next one we have on Saturday. Number 12, A&M at number 3, Florida. Who are you rolling with?
I'll take A&M. I love the guards. I love the guards for the Aggies. I think they will give Florida all they can handle unless Walter Clayton has a Walter Clayton game. If he struggles, A&M wins.
Hey, this is a coin flip game for me, and I told myself when I shot my Gatorade bottle to the trash can, if I made it, I was going to roll with Florida, and I made it. So I'm going to roll with Florida on this one. That's how much of a coin flip I think it is here. It's hard for me to ever bet against Walter Clayton. And a little bit about A&M real quick. Anytime I see Wade Taylor play a basketball game, I ask myself if he's really that good. Like, there are moments where the guy goes completely apeshit and lights the world on fire and makes big time shots. But there are moments, Garrett, where when that guy is cold, I mean, it is horrendous. And I think Florida could probably suffocate him and focus on him, and I think Florida can get it done. The last game on Saturday that we have on our banger segment is number 22, Arizona, at number 9, Iowa State. I'm going to keep this one simple for me. Iowa State 10 times over.
I agree.
Yeah, there's not much really for me on that one. We have the Caleb Love and Arizona conversation every week. Everybody knows how we feel about that. Roll Iowa State. Sunday, March 2nd, we have number 11, Wisconsin, at number 8, Michigan State. This is one that I'm not going to miss either. This is one I'm going to be locked into from start to finish. A big-time basketball game here.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the season, the Wisconsin teams that always make a little bit of noise are the Wisconsin teams that can score. This Wisconsin team can really score the ball. I think they're probably too much for Michigan State to handle. It's going to be tougher on the road, but I still think Wisconsin comes away with a road win.
I love that. I love that. I was going to go Wisconsin too. I kind of thought maybe you'd go with the home team right there, but I'm going to go with you on this. I think Wisconsin can go get the job done. I think they're a damn good basketball team, and I think I almost feel like when I watch them, like they're playing for more than what most teams are playing for. Like, I feel like they are all bought in together, and they really lean on one another when the time gets tough, and they distribute the ball well. Give me Wisconsin, even though Michigan State at home is a really tough place to play. Moving on to Monday, March 3rd, we have Kansas at number 4, Houston, and I'm going to say this right now. I hope Houston beats them by 30. I hope they drag them down and pummel them with everything they've got, because I'm really tired of watching this Kansas basketball team play lazy basketball and squeak some wins out here or there.
I think Kansas looked so bad last night that Bill Self is going to have a fire lit under these guys' ass. It's time we see a Kansas turnaround. I can't remember the last time in 5 years that I haven't seen a number next to Kansas when they're on the TV. They are an unranked basketball team. I would love to know the stat when the last time that happened was. These guys will come out with their absolute hair on fire. I don't know if they're going to win, but they will look a lot better. I think it's worth sprinkling the money line on Kansas for this one.
I saw the stat last night. I can't remember. I want to say it was, this may sound crazy, but I want to say it was like 1,400 days or something like that. That it's been that long since they've been ranked. I hear you for everything that you're saying, and I do agree that at some point Bill Self gets it going. But I've been saying that for a couple weeks now with Kansas. And I'm going to roll with Houston here. I think Houston is just world beaters right now. And I think Sampson really has them focused on, hey, we need to go get this 1 seed, and we need to do it convincingly. And I think this is another win that gravitates them to that 1 line for sure in the tournament. So I'm going to roll with Houston, taking the obvious pick out there, I guess you would say, on this one. And I think they win it comfortably for me. But Garrett, you are prone to sniff out a good upset, and this might be the one. Tuesday, March 4th, we have Auburn again on this list. Number 1, Auburn at number 12, A&M. Could we see Auburn get beat the second time in conference play right here?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's going to be this game, but I think they do drop either a game to Kentucky or to Texas A&M. It's really hard to win back-to-back road games within a 3-day spell against 2 really capable teams. They'll drop one of them. So my advice, if they beat Kentucky, I'm going to roll with A&M in this one. I really don't think they pick up 2 road wins in 3 days.
I love every bit of that advice. And if they lose to Kentucky, hammer them against A&M. Without a doubt, is the best advice of the weekend. So watch what they do Saturday to really focus on what they're going to do Tuesday. I am going to take Auburn just because I think it's the right pick here, just to be safe per se. But yes, like I just said and you just said, if they lose the one, take them on the other one. The last game that we had to talk about for bangers of the week is number 25 BYU at number 9, Iowa State. And if BYU gets it going from 3, they can beat anybody in the country because they are not afraid to shoot the 3 ball.
Richie Saunders. That's a name to remember come March. He is a really, really fun basketball player to watch. He will shoot it from anywhere on the floor. He's the reason this BYU team goes as well as they're going now. It wouldn't surprise me if they give this game a fight. I don't think they come away with a win, but it is a name to remember. This BYU team can beat anyone if they shoot the ball the way they're capable of.
Give me BYU in this basketball game. I think Iowa State takes care of Arizona at home, and they have another tough turnaround basketball game. Luckily for them, it is at home back to back. But I do think BYU can kind of come in with some momentum. And I think if they get hot and get some confidence and silence the crowd early, I think BYU can handle business in this basketball game. So I'm going to roll BYU here, Garrett.
I like it.
And for a lot of the reasons, too, like not to really just dwell on this, but a lot of the reasons we talk about this Iowa State team and how if they go cold, they really go cold. And I don't know if they can get back in a game if they get behind big early. So give me BYU. But hey, man, fantastic episode here. Fantastic stuff. We just spit out right there. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything you're looking forward to? Anything else in college basketball that is on your mind right now?
No, I would just keep an eye out. I mean, like we talked about these March standings and these bracket standings, conference tournament standings, they change literally game by game. You have no idea what these are going to shape up to be. Of those 1 seeds we listed, Collin, if these teams skid, you may not see any of them. We think obviously
Yeah.
Duke are locks, but this is an awesome time of year for college basketball. Watch as many games as you can if you love it. If you don't, who cares? March Madness is around the corner. You know you're going to watch it.
Hey, even if you're a casual fan, now's the time to get in the boat so you can make a good bracket. I know everybody out there does brackets, especially if you're watching us. So hop in the boat right now. Garrett and I are driving, and just follow along with us, and we'll give you all the necessities that you need to make sure that you're up to date on the most important details out there in college basketball. So, hey, everybody, once again, this is Foul 'em Hard with Deep Threat Sports Network. That's Garrett. I'm Collin. You can follow us on X at DT_sports_, Instagram Deep Threat Sports with a Z, TikTok Deep Threat Sports Network, Facebook Deep Threat Sports Network, YouTube Deep Threat Sports, Spotify Deep Threat Sports. Garrett, hey, man, until next time, we're going to be back in March, baby. I can't wait to do this thing. Hey, man, peace.
Good seeing you, buddy.